Today's episode is brought to you by We Break You Buy. Interested in sports cards and memorabilia? Check out We Break You Buy on TikTok. We Break You Buy is a small operation run by three brothers, offering spots for a chance at winning some incredible sports cards and memorabilia. That's We Break You Buy. Check it out today on TikTok. Of Why Wasn't It Better? I am your host, Patrick Darms.
And I'm your co-host, Anton Peras.
And we have a return guest who has not been on the podcast in quite some time, Taylor Schuurmans. Welcome back.
Thanks, boys. Glad to be here.
Welcome back, Taylor.
This movie.
What was that?
Hate this movie. Can't wait to talk about it.
Oh, I love the enthusiasm. For if any of the listeners don't remember Taylor, he was on a while back to talk about two films, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, and Prometheus. So yeah, it's been, I think you're right, Taylor. It's been since October of last year.
Yep, it has. Can't wait.
Very good. Well, Anton, I'll just get the admin out of the way really quick. As always, if you like what you hear and you haven't made it official, please give us a like, a follow, a subscription. Every little bit counts. And the Patreon is coming. Anton, I've decided since we've been talking about it for so long and we still haven't done it, we should just postpone it till season 5.
Sounds good to me.
Like let's actually do it.
Perfect.
Now we've committed to it because it's recorded.
Yes, and we will definitely be putting it up for season 5.
And we will also be on the TikTok, unless it gets banned, in which case we won't be. You excited about that, Taylor? For Why Wasn't It Better getting on TikTok?
Oh, yeah.
You a big TikTok user?
I was, and then I think, so like maybe April of 2020 when it was like at its peak, my girlfriend's like account or something got hacked. Let's just say TikTok might have had something to do with it, but I'm not too sure. But since then, I've never.
Oh, that's ominous.
Yeah, I stopped using it after that.
Would you consider rejoining if we were on it?
Yep, and I just follow you guys, and I check it every day for content.
Wow,
that is quite the support. So really appreciate that.
Yeah, that means a lot.
No problem, guys.
Anything for you. Taylor, anything you want to plug or promote before we get started?
I want to plug the country of Mexico. I love it to death. Been living here for a little bit. I'm leaving next week, so I'm pretty sad about that. So just want to shout out to Mexico.
Anton, we like talking about disaster films, don't we?
We do. We do like to make sure that we're covering all of the emotional fireballs that are disaster films.
Yes. We've also covered some actual disasters that were movies, like Exorcist 2.
Oh, fair enough.
What was the last disaster we covered? Hulk? I would consider that a disaster.
It all depends on the scale of it.
Yeah. I mean, Exorcist 2 takes the cake. Prometheus was a disaster. But Spider-Man 3 was a disaster.
Yeah.
Seems like you guys are pretty lax with the disaster label here.
There's been less than you'd think. And when I say disaster, I'm talking about a movie that is so bad you wouldn't even recommend anyone see it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Now I see where you're going.
Maybe you think that way about this film. Maybe not. Either way, let's introduce this. So today's film is a 20-year-old anniversary film, gentlemen. The Day After Tomorrow.
Dang.
This was released almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, the 2000s are calling.
They are. We do a lot of 2000s films. It's not really a coincidence given our ages. We're all about the same age here. We're all millennials.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our listeners are millennials, which makes a lot of sense. This film, I think, is quite popular amongst millennials, even those who like it and those who don't. This was just such a big film when it came out. This was such a big deal. I've been looking forward to covering this because I hadn't seen it in quite some time, but I'm kind of stepping on the introduction, Anton, so I'm going to go ahead and do that without further ado. So, after climatologist Jack Hall is largely ignored by UN officials when presenting his environmental concerns, his research proves true when an enormous superstorm develops. setting off catastrophic natural disasters throughout the world. Trying to get to his son Sam, who is trapped in New York City with his friend Laura and others, Jack and his crew must travel by foot from Philadelphia. From Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Braving the elements to get to Sam before it's too late. The Day After Tomorrow was released on May 28th, 2004 by Centropolis Entertainment, Lionsgate, the Mark Gordon Company, and 20th Century Fox. Directed by Roland Emmerich. The screenplay was written by Roland Emmerich and Jeffrey Nachmanoff, based on The Coming Global Superstorm by Art Bell and Whitley Strieber, starring Dennis Quaid, Jake Gyllenhaal, Emmy Rossum, Sella Ward, Ian Holm, J.O. Sanders, Dash Mihawk, and R.J. Smith. The budget was $125 million. That is $200 million adjusted for inflation. And the box office was $552 million. That's $890 million adjusted for inflation. Taylor, why did you want to talk about The Day After Tomorrow, even though you seemingly hate it?
Specifically because I think you briefly talked about it, the hype surrounding this movie. I remember personally being like very excited to see this, and I'm not into like this type of movie usually, but I remember like seeing the trailer and having like a strong urge to see this. And do you want me to continue, or should we get to the rest later? Because I don't think it's a surprise.
You can keep going. It's
Okay.
fine. Get it all out.
Okay. And I don't think it's a surprise when I saw it, but I remember seeing it as a kid and being completely disappointed in it. And then flash forward 20 years later, seeing it as an adult and being even more disappointed.
So hold on. Safe to say you went into this film with high expectations, a Roland Emmerich film?
I mean, who doesn't love Independence Day?
I love Independence Day.
That's
but
fair.
Same with me.
It's got some flaws.
Sure, but even as a kid, aren't you like...
I loved it. I still love
Right.
it. I love Independence Day while acknowledging it has got some cornball stuff in it.
And I
Well,
mean,
then the Patriot too.
Cornball.
very cornball.
I still like it. Roland Emmerich. The B-team version of Steven Spielberg. The discount James Cameron. A man who has made hit after hit while impressing absolutely none of the movie critics. It's got a fun filmography, though. Would you both admit that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for any listeners that may not recognize the name, they will definitely recognize the filmography.
I'm just going to rattle through some of them. This is an abridged filmography. Universal Soldier, Stargate, Independence Day, Godzilla, The Patriot, this film, The Day After Tomorrow, 10,000 BC, 2012, White House Down, and Moonfall. And a film I'd like to give a shout out to called Anonymous, which is a very atypical Roland Emmerich film.
Hey, I've got a question. Did you guys ever see 2012?
Yes.
Was
Oh, yeah.
that anything like this movie?
Yeah. It's very
Kinda,
similar.
yeah.
Very similar. Are you wondering because this film's very similar to Independence Day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like there's literally what's the cover of 2012? It's like a natural disaster, seemingly
Yeah.
the same as The Day After Tomorrow.
Yeah, it's got some similarities for sure. It's got the all-star cast with a lot of quality character actors in it, and it's all set around the ancient myth about the Mayan calendar predicting the end of the world in 2012, and then there's all these natural disasters. Am I right, Anton? I haven't seen it since it came out.
That's right. It was around all that hype.
Yeah.
Right. So he just revamped The Day After Tomorrow into something
Yes.
more mythological.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm not really sure why it wasn't released in 2012. That would have made sense, but for whatever reason, they released it in 2009.
Well, in the same
Maybe
way,
didn't wanna
one could
jinx
say
themselves.
Or
trying
they
to be
wanted to
ahead of the
scare
times
everyone.
to get folks worried about
Oh.
climate change.
They
Maybe
scared
trying
the
to get-
critics.
Trying to get people freaked out about 2012.
All the Mayan scientists have predicted this would happen. I would say out of all the films that we listed, the only one I truly, really hated was 10,000 BC. That is one of the worst movies I have ever seen.
There's a lot
Even
of marketing hype
Godzilla's
for that
bad,
one.
but it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine.
Awful.
It's
I hate
bad, but it's got Jean Reno in it, right, Anton?
That's right.
I had completely erased this from my memory, but Roland Emmerich also gave us the giant pile of crap that was Independence Day Resurgence.
Ooh, come on. Let's not bring that up.
Well, I want to bring it up because I have a funny anecdote about it real quick. This is how much I detested it. I was on a flight, a rather lengthy flight, coming back from the West Coast, and I had had a couple drinks because there's no way I would have watched this sober because I knew it was going to be bad. So I decided that I would watch Independence Day, Resurgence, midway through my flight. It's it's a little bit over 2 hours, the runtime. I got almost an hour and 30 minutes into it, and I just shut it off. Never saw the ending.
Didn't even switch to another movie. Just stared at nothing for the rest of the flight.
Correct.
Woo, that's all we need to know.
It's, to be fair, it probably goes down as one of the worst sequels I've ever seen. So,
I mean, I just wanted to tell that brief story because that has not happened too many times in my life. I will finish most movies, but that one, no, I just couldn't do it. And yes, Taylor, to elaborate on my answer to your question, I shut it off and just turned the TV, they turned the little screen off on the back of the seat and just didn't watch anything the rest of the time. I was so mad.
just had to think about your decision.
I actually, so it's funny you say that, Anton. A listener actually asked if we were going to cover that film, and out of respect for my dignity and your time, it'll never be on our list. If you want to cover it, Anton, you will have to be joined by someone else on that episode. There's no way I'm spending time talking about that movie.
Well, look, let's just make sure that Roland Emmerich knows about our stance on it, just because it'll be awkward if he hears all of this and then in the future he's on the show, because pretty strong stance. But we have nothing personal against him.
I would love to have Roland Emmerich on. He seems like a genuinely nice guy, and I don't think he would care about anything we has to say because he doesn't care what the film critics have to say. And I have to give him credit. All of his films have something in common. They all make lots of money. He knows how to deliver a blockbuster. He really does. This movie, we read the box office numbers. This movie made a ton of money when it was released. Mm-hmm. I'm not even sure it was the top. I don't even think it was the third highest grossing film of the year. Anton, do you know what was number 1 and number 2? They're both
Shrek
films
2.
you love.
Shrek 2.
That's right. And?
Howl's Moving Castle?
No.
This was 2004?
2004.
Grand Theft Auto San Andreas.
No. You're not even taking this seriously.
Wait, you got Shrek 2.
But I mean that actually
love.
But that did release in 2004 so just give it a
video
out.
Game.
The Incredibles.
That's one of them.
Ooh.
Give us a hint.
It's another second film in a series.
Matrix Reloaded?
No.
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2, and then number 3 was Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Big year for sequels. 2004 was quite a year.
Solid year for movies.
Yeah, for a lot of things.
Collateral came out that year. Great movie.
I mean, I just mentioned San Andreas. Half-Life 2 released in 2004.
Wow.
Not a fan.
Metroid Prime 2 Echoes for any GameCube Metroid Prime fans.
Classic.
Yeah, that would have been the tail end of GameCube, right?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Back to this film. Is it safe to call Roland Emmerich the modern era master of disaster? Is he our generation's Irwin Allen?
Ooh, I think that's a pretty fair statement.
When you say disaster, do you mean disaster of a movie or disaster of events in a movie?
Disaster films. Like, you just think of like the 90s and 2000s disaster movies. He made the best ones, right? This one and Independence Day. That's kind of it.
I don't know. When I think of disaster, I think of like what could go wrong will always go wrong, and that's.
Well, I just mean if you look this movie up on IMDb, like, it is classified as a disaster movie.
That was crazy.
It's not crazy. It makes sense. There are disasters depicted in this film which drive the plot.
I mean, who are some of his similar contemporaries?
I don't think he had any competition that was like worth mentioning. I mean, you could maybe James Cameron, because is Titanic a disaster movie? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say
sort of, but that's only one, right?
Right. I don't know. I would say whoever was making all of those parody movies in the 2000s, I think that would be the closest comparison in terms of disaster films.
Well, wait a second. What's the Final Destination? That's what I would consider like the epitome of a disaster movie.
Yeah, I guess those are like more horror, right?
Yeah, I think those are more horror.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, interesting. Okay.
But because you had a lot of, we talked about this a little bit, Anton. You had Armageddon, you had Deep Impact, you had Volcano, you had Dante's Peak, you had The Perfect Storm, sort of a disaster movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. Roland Emmerich, though, he is a household name, especially for people our age. Maybe his stars faded a little bit. I didn't see Moonfall. Don't think I had to.
But especially for our generation, these movies were pretty impactful.
They were. And this movie was huge. And by the way, Anton, we usually do this at the end of the recording, but next week we're going to be covering a classic disaster film, The Towering Inferno.
Yes, and that'll be an interesting comparison.
Yeah, because that's a pretty highly regarded movie that was nominated for Best Picture. But anyway, Day After Tomorrow. Taylor, I know what you mean. I remember the trailer for this being spectacular. I remember being really excited for this movie. But I think, unlike you, by this point, I knew what to expect from Roland Emmerich. After Godzilla, I was like, well, there's no way this is going to be like good. It's probably going to be cheesy. It's probably going to have some pretty cool set piece stuff in it. And that's kind of what it is. It has a 45% Rotten Tomatoes score, so pretty measly. I'm just saying, speaking as a millennial, this was on cable TV at least every day for 10 years straight. It seemed like every other person I knew owned a copy of the DVD. I think it was in every $5 movie deal bin at Target for what seemed like forever. It really must have been printing money to combat inflation with the DVD copies, because this film, I just remember seeing this on TV so many times that it's become ingrained in my memory. And I have to admit, I have a soft spot for this movie. A lot of memories, a lot of nostalgia here.
We're really dating ourselves to our younger listeners. They're like, what's a DVD bin?
I don't know. I am reading the physical media is making somewhat of a comeback.
Yeah, there's dozens of us that collect it.
I think, you know what it's going to be like? Remember when e-readers came out and everyone was talking about how, like, well, that's the end of books. They're not going to print books anymore. And books do fine. Print, it trods along. It does fine. There's always going to be a group of people that love reading physical books. I think just like that, there are always going to be people that like owning physical media.
And with streaming, with so much stuff getting taken off of libraries or not even knowing what streaming platform something is on, I'll always know that I can pop on Jim Cotta whenever I want because I have it on DVD.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of dating ourselves in this movie, it may be hard to believe, but 20 years ago, it was a big deal. This movie really was.
It was.
It's probably Roland Emmerich's last watchable film, would you say, Anton?
I think that's fair, especially when we've gone over the filmography.
Yeah. I know 2012 made more money than this, but I don't think it was well liked as this one does. As this one does. This film has a following. It really does. And to prepare for this podcast, I told you guys beforehand, I watched this on Saturday afternoon. It was pouring rain outside, very appropriate. I made myself a Manhattan. I settled into my lazy boy, and I let the stupidity of this movie wash over me. And that is really the best way to watch this movie.
So it's your guilty pleasure movie.
I think it's a bit of a guilty pleasure. I'm not really going to defend any of the massive weaknesses that are in this film, but I think I am going to be kinder to it than you are.
Let's get it on then.
Let's do it.
The film was inspired by Coast to Coast AM talk radio hosts Art Bell and Whitley Strieber's book, The Coming Global Superstorm. Whitley Strieber also penned the novelization. Pat, did you read it?
No, I passed on this one.
Yeah, you had everything you needed with this film, so why bother?
Of course.
So Roland Emmerich started working on the screenplay while he was filming The Patriot, and he stopped after 9/11, thinking a disaster movie is inappropriate after such a cataclysmic real-life event. And to get a studio to fund the project, Michael Weimer created an auction with a copy of the script being sent to all major studios along with the term sheet. They had a 24-hour window to decide whether to produce the movie with Roland Emmerich directing. 20th Century Fox was the only studio to accept the terms. I'd like to think that they were in one of those auction houses with someone speaking really fast. Lindsay Lohan came close to playing Laura, but had to back out due to, quote, major scheduling conflicts, end quote. Gentlemen, Lindsay Lohan. What do we think of Lindsay Lohan in that role?
Wouldn't have made a difference.
I think it would have enhanced it.
I mean, we did end up going with Emmy Rossum instead, who I remember our conversation about Emmy Rossum. She went to movie jail.
That's right. She really struggles to show emotion.
I mean, 2004 was a big year for her. She was in Phantom of the Opera, which pretty big name for musical theater. She was in this film, but then for her career, after she was in Dragon Ball Evolution, which is really, she has a familiarity with disaster films.
That's it. Yes. They put her in movie jail.
They put her in movie jail. So
yeah, Taylor, we have this theory that if you're in a movie that is bad enough, you're just put in movie jail for a while.
That makes sense.
It's why she had to do Shameless for 10 years instead of being in big films anymore.
I can't believe we're actually going to have to cover that movie.
One of these days, R.I.P. Akira Toriyama.
Yeah. Taylor, have you seen that movie?
Nope.
Don't
plan on seeing it.
don't.
It is rough.
Don't watch
It
it.
is rough. To continue on, the film was primarily shot in Montreal and Toronto, with additional footage shot in New York City and Chiyoda, Tokyo. The shoot took place over a long period from November 2002 to October 2003, and we have to wonder if there were breaks in that schedule because we have no idea how this film took almost a year to shoot. So, might sound a little fishy.
Wait. They shot in Tokyo?
Yes, they did. But I'm
Wasn't
sure there were a lot of shots that were also on sets. But yeah, there was on-set location in Tokyo.
It looked like a set.
You're telling me that the movie took place in New York and there was like a 5-second clip of like Tokyo, less than the clip of
You don't
when they were
remember
in India.
where that businessman gets killed by the
Yeah.
giant hail?
Yeah, they're in,
One of the best
in
scenes in the
India
film.
too. They're in India too, and they didn't go to India to film, but they went to Tokyo.
Well, if we talk about how big
yeah.
the budget is for the film,
They
Roland
had money
Emmerich's
to
like,
spend, Taylor.
yeah, Roland Emmerich's like, well, we really want to get this right, so let's go to Japan for a month.
Ugh.
I'm sure
This
the
really was
director's
filmed
cut.
over. This was filmed over 11 months. How?
I'm sure there was a lot of scenes that are on the cutting room floor.
Well, I will say this. So if either of you bothered to watch the visual effects breakdown, which you didn't, you would have seen all the water laden sets that those actors were trudging through, and that must have taken a while.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a lot that can happen in 11 months, but safe to say they did take some of that time to go to Tokyo. So in keeping with the movie's ecological theme, Emmerich paid $200,000 from his own pocket to make the production, quote, carbon neutral. So the first of its kind in Hollywood, it's an all carbon dioxide emitted by the production was offset by planting of trees and investments in renewable energy. So interestingly enough,
Admirable.
it's admirable, and there is a lot of very environmentally conscious decisions being made on the corporate side nowadays with trying to cover that carbon footprint. So very ahead of his time and very in line with what we think of with Roland Emmerich, right?
Yeah, I think so. The film contains 416 visual effects shots with 9 effects houses, notably Industrial Light and Magic and Digital Domain, and over 1,000 artists worked on it for over a year. Although a miniature set was initially considered, according to the behind-the-scenes documentary, the one you guys didn't watch, for the destruction of New York, effects artists instead utilized a 13-block-sized LiDAR-scanned 3D model of Manhattan, with over 50,000 scanned photographs used for building textures. The opening flyover of Antarctica was also computer-generated, created by digitally scanning miniature icebergs created out of sculpted styrofoam, and falling pieces of ice as the shelf cracks were entirely hand-animated. Created by the effects company Hydraulics and running for approximately 2.5 minutes in length, the scene was, at the time, the longest continuous all-CG shot in film history, surpassing the space zoom-out from the opening of Contact. There's a film we're going to cover, Anton. Contact. Yeah, that's going to be fun. We mentioned how successful this film was at the box office, and well, this makes a lot of sense because we saw the DVDs everywhere. It made another $110 million in DVD sales. And that's why Roland Emmerich projects keep getting greenlit. They make money.
Goodness gracious. I mean, well, if there's an expectation for this film to make a lot of money, which it did, let's go ahead and dive in. Why wasn't this film better?
Number one, the science. This has
What
nothing
science?
to do with, there's no science. This has nothing to do with the quality of this particular film, but I have to say, before we talk about the science, the Centropolis Films logo animation is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't a Roland Emmerich film. You just need to turn your brain off because if you spend more than half a second thinking about anything, you're just going to get upset. Unfortunately, that's what we're going to do on this episode. We're going to think about some stuff, and we're going to be a little upset, I think. I can tell Taylor's upset.
Very upset. Almost crying.
Emmerich concedes that while the events portrayed in this movie are indeed possible, the time frame over which they take place was implausibly short and tailored for sheer entertainment value.
Which is kind of meta because they mentioned that in the movie.
They do in the film. Like, this wasn't supposed to happen for 100 years.
But that's also another thing. Like, people are just so dumbfounded. Like, people are dumbfounded by like what's going on in the world, and it just keeps going throughout the whole movie.
It does.
The science does nothing for there's nothing for the people in the actual movie because they just keep denying it, and it doesn't do anything for me, the viewer, especially like someone like I was expecting I know you want to turn your brain off, but having science in like a movie like this is kind of fun sometimes because you want like some depth. Like it was just so complicated and boring, and I just couldn't follow the science. I just like I wanted it to go away. I just wanted it to be more stupid. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so you wanted more stupidity?
Well, after like not being able to like concentrate on the science part, I'm just like get this off the screen. I just want to see the disaster.
Well, if you want more stupidity and more disaster, I have a movie for you, and it's called 2012.
Oh God.
It's I will say the world government felt like it was a bit more organized and aligned on its response on like, hey, we have to react quickly. Let's listen to the scientists once the film gets going and things are actually occurring. And I compare that there was another disaster film, 2011's Contagion. Do you remember that one, guys?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that was even way too, like in the same vein, way too organized versus when I think about how things actually rolled out when 2020 hit. I feel like it was not this organized.
No, it wasn't.
But then again, we didn't have Dennis Quaid leading our scientists.
That's true. Hero Jack Hall.
Yes.
Well, yes, this film is impressive in its stupidity, Taylor. I agree with you. There is very little science that is accurately portrayed. That is the biggest criticism of this, right? It has been much derided over the years for its poor interpretation of global warming events. So we're not going to bother touching on that much. None of us are scientists. We can't tell you the ins and outs of, well, why was this wrong? Why was this depicted incorrectly?
I mean, even the characters in their own film like weren't in agreement with the science. They kept denying that anything was like happening. You know, like I think I remember specifically like it was halfway through the movie, like Los Angeles decimated by like tornadoes, like the largest hurricane in the world like hit, and Jack Hall, right? That's his name.
Jack Hall.
Jack Hall was
Doctor.
like
Dr. Jack Hall.
Dr. Jack Hall was like
Excuse me.
he's like, oh well, like my theory is that like this is happening, and they were just like, no, we don't know what's going on. Whatever you're saying is wrong. Nothing happened.
And then they started believing him. One of the
And then
things
they didn't.
too, I don't know if this tripped you guys up too. I was having a tough time keeping track of who was actually scientists and who wasn't. So like we know Dennis Quaid's character is a scientist.
Yes.
Were his two crewmates also scientists?
That's what I thought because they're also in the
Okay,
right
they don't-
place. And
they
they were
don't-
also in the right place for science stuff.
They don't seem like it.
Does Jack Quaid really?
Jack Quaid.
Or sorry,
You mean Dennis Quaid.
Oh shoot. Maybe that's the origination.
Jack
But
Quaid is a scientist in Oppenheimer.
Yes. But did Dennis Quaid really a scientist or coming off as a scientist?
I want to be a little kind to Dennis Quaid here. No, he doesn't seem like a scientist, but I don't know any climate scientists, so he might be like
No,
one.
I know what he is in this movie. I have it somewhere. He's like a paleontologist or something.
Paleoclimatologist.
There it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
I've never met one. I don't know what they look like, so he could be.
But it's fair to say Dennis Quaid did love his role and playing Jack Hall in the film so much that he named his son after his character Jack Hall.
Is this true?
That
And
can't
that's
be
why
true.
And that's why his name's Jack Quaid.
That can't be right.
No, it's not.
No, that's not right. No.
It's not. It's the truth until you prove me wrong.
All right. Well, Jack Quaid was born in '92.
Okay.
Boom.
This is like weirdly my favorite Dennis Quaid performance, which I don't know if
He
that's
was
good for him
actually.
or not.
I agree. He was good in this.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah. This is a very cheesy movie, but I don't know why I don't dislike it, and I don't know why. I thought it was well paced, at least for the first 2/3 of the film.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get to the part where it just bottomed out. But one of the things I think that Emmerich did well is, I mean, this follows a very, very similar template to Independence Day, right? Where he introduces the conflict very early in the film and he brings you into it. I would say within 20 minutes, the disaster stuff starts.
Mm-hmm. It's fair.
And I think that's to the film's strength.
I disagree. And you want me to tell you why?
Please.
It like Independence. We'll compare it to Independence Day because Independence Day, like the aliens attack, everything's done, destroyed. You know, before a fourth of the movie's over, everything's destroyed, right? And then it's the aftermath.
Maybe.
But let's just say, for my example, this movie. Oh my god! Like just the whole weather disaster just drags on. It just drags on. Like I know and this is like to the weakness of the movie. There's no real like antagonist. It's only just the weather and
Well, you had the wolves.
oh, the wolf.
Don't forget
Whoa.
about those
Oh,
CGI wolves.
and Dick Cheney. He was the
Yeah.
antagonist too.
I mean,
Right.
I really don't want to disrespect the the cold as it chased Jake Gyllenhaal.
It was menacing.
Yeah.
But I wanted everything to happen already. Like first it was snowing in India, then they like pan to New York where it's raining, and then they go back to DC where it's like still normal.
Don't
And
forget the Tokyo backlot.
Yep, Tokyo. There was hail in Tokyo. Whoa, whoa.
Yep.
But then like it just drags on. Like they kept panning to these other cities and stuff, and New York should have been like the focus, you know. And even like the storm itself, I know I guess was the main focus, but I'd like to see more like in the aftermath. And it's just like it just dragged.
I think the aftermath would have been pretty grim.
It'd been more entertaining, I'll tell you that.
How many people do you think died during the course of this film's events? A couple billion?
That's fair. I mean, that's
Yeah.
I would definitely wouldn't surprise me if that was the number.
Seemed like everyone in Europe, everyone in Russia.
The Northern
Hollywood's
Hemisphere.
gone.
Yeah, Hollywood was destroyed. Manhattan was like a flood zone. Good thing they went to like the lowest building in the square.
After they were like safely in like the apartment high rise.
Yeah, they were in a high rise and they chose they left that one, but there was no fireplace in there, so they couldn't stay in there. Yeah, I can't defend anything you're saying.
I have more if you want.
Please.
Well, there's just a lot of contradictions. We can go back to the high rise. They were safely in this high rise, and then another antagonist could have been what's Jake Gyllenhaal's character's name? Sam. Sam's like counterpart from the other school.
It could have been, but he turns out to be cool.
Yeah, but what's the point, you know? And they were in his high rise, and he's like, I gotta go get my brother in Philadelphia, and they're like, okay, we'll all go. And then not like 5 minutes later, in the same film, I timed it. Like Sam is freaking out. He's like, oh guys, like we can't do this. We have to go to higher ground. Not 5 minutes before that, like I said, he was just like, okay, we'll go to Philadelphia. Ugh.
Well, then the trains flooded and they couldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. Just wasn't thinking right.
I'll just say this as a counter. They made a movie based on the weather. How good could it be?
True. Very true.
Well, Roland Emmerich was very wise to base a film on the weather because we mentioned a $10 million salary. He also received 10% of the box office gross. So he collected approximately $37 million for making this movie.
Oof, man got paid.
Yeah, pretty good. I think he's pretty good at making B movies. I think he's bad at making good movies. But Anton, we talked about this a couple times now at this point. He is so consistently mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
He is, but it's interesting putting him up against some other directors of similar large pieces, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, of course, we've talked about this before, comparisons to Michael Bay in terms of putting together big explosive action scenes. But
yeah, I mean, I will say this. I think the highs with Michael Bay are higher, but the lows are lower. Emmerich is more consistently mediocre, and I personally like his visual style better than Michael Bay's. He edits and he shoots and edits his stuff a lot more cleanly, whereas a lot of Bay stuff looks like has that music video look.
I mean, he sticks to his roots.
I just don't think it's aging well.
Yeah.
Taylor, you have thoughts on that?
I agree, except that I like Michael Bay better.
I think Michael Bay is better. I think the highs are higher, but let's not also overlook this is the man that gave us Pearl Harbor and all of the Transformers movies.
Oh yeah.
The lows are lower.
The first Transformers movie I thought was cool.
I think it's okay. I think they progressively turn into some of the worst films ever made.
Let's just say this. I like that kind of CGI and action more than weather.
So the subject matter. You like the kind of films that Michael Bay covers.
You weren't terrified when the cold was chasing our heroes into the library and they had to shut the door and burn books?
And I have actually something about that made the film made the whole weather like less effective for the audience. If you want me to go over it right now. It's my theory.
I please do.
Yeah.
I'm loving this.
So I'm going to reference back to actually 2 Alien movies. Independence Day. Actually, no. I just watched Arrival, not for the first time, but like for like the second or third time recently. And something like I really like in movies is when you feel alone, like with the characters, it makes like other things more effective. It's like less is more. That's where I'm trying to get at. The weather in Day After Tomorrow, they were filming like all these places in the world that were affected by the weather. Like it was just like disaster overload, right? So when like it goes back to New York or like any like real like climax with the weather, it just was like I've seen this, and like it's not scary, it's not intense or anything like that. I'm gonna go back to Arrival. Like the focus was on that one alien ship where Amy Adams is, and like they don't really focus on any of the other ships, although you know that there's other ships, alien ships around the world. You just sort of, the audience like learns stuff from just word of mouth and things. So if they had just focused, I think, on like New York specifically, like stuff was happening in New York, and showed the audience, not like literally showed them, like showed Tokyo getting hailed on, Los Angeles having like tornadoes and stuff. I feel like the effect of the weather, the strength of the weather would have been like scarier. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think that Emmerich does, and not that just he always messes up, is he can't help himself. He has to put the cornball stuff in, like the guy in the Porsche getting crushed when he's on the phone with the guy that's working in the weather station, and he's trying to have sex with his girlfriend or whatever, and then there's the janitor who's got the headphones on and he can't hear the tornado, and it's all like a big joke.
Yeah, but
I think to your point, that stuff like that does undermine the global disaster of it all. It's
and
very just juvenile humor.
I know, but he could have done that in New York. I'm saying like focus on one place, focus
I mean,
your
there
attention.
was a great deal of focus on New York. The film's centerpiece, the flooding of Manhattan, it takes place there.
But not, we had already seen like Los Angeles. I thought was more intense. Los Angeles get decimated by tornadoes. I thought that was like stronger than like New York flooding. That's just my opinion.
No, that's fair. I mean,
So
I think like it is, if the concept is this is a world-changing event, he has to toe the line between how do we capture that scale but at the same time continue the plot moving forward. So it's just kind of more of like a highlights of look at all these places getting trashed, and then it's fair to say the real focus is basically in New York, right? And then the journey to New York, and that's where you get the majority of seeing the effects of the climate change.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I agree. And you actually brought up something else I wanted to talk about. I feel like the main plot was Jack rescuing his son Sam, and the weather was just sort of like the X factor. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
But that, I'm kind of shifting gears. That plot doesn't even start until like half the movie's over,
Right.
and it was just confusing, and I feel like the climax of the whole film was like when the eye of the storm came through everyone and like froze everyone. But like that wasn't the main plot point either. It was just like
There
two
is no
plots
real plot.
clashing. There is no plot. And
No.
like the end of the movie, like is basically like Jack rescuing Sam, and they're all happy and stuff. But the world now is like in an ice age, and like nothing really has been solved. And Dick Cheney's president now. I mean, that's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I can't defend the plot. It is very flimsy, but I mean, Emmerich, he can deliver set pieces. I really liked the flooding of Manhattan. I thought it was really well done.
That was a really cool shot.
We get all those ominous warning signs of the birds fleeing, right? And the animals in the zoo are going crazy. Also, this is a movie where people don't know what people in real life would know, I guess. Because, like, I think it's pretty common knowledge, right? If you see all the birds fleeing, like, you're in deep shit, right?
Yeah, that's fair. It's a good show, not tell moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was good CGI, and that was cool looking.
Yeah, I was actually I hadn't seen this in a while. I was impressed by how well I thought the CGI held up in most of the scenes. There's a lot of really long sweeping overhead shots that are very effective. The storm tide covering the Statue of Liberty, all the wide shots of the streets of Manhattan flooding. It all looked pretty good for a 20-year-old movie.
I thought the whole chase scene where they're running in further and further in to get away from the freeze, and then Jake Gyllenhaal narrowly escapes as the door becomes colder. I felt like that looked a little cheesy.
I mean, the whole thing was that whole thing was cheesy. Yeah,
but I mean, everything about it was cheesy. But I think like that glaringly for me, that was something that I definitely forgot since I saw this years ago. And then the execution of it was it felt like Jason Voorhees was chasing them, but really it was just the impending doom of Mother Nature.
There was probably no way to take that seriously.
No. I mean,
I was surprised this did not get an Academy Award nomination for visual effects.
The wolves. That's why.
The wolves look terrible. But I mean, so Spider-Man 2 won it that year.
That makes sense to me.
Great effects.
Yeah.
The other two nominees were Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which I don't remember a ton about the effects. I think they're good.
Yeah, no, they were solid effects. Any of the Harry Potter films, especially the earlier ones, like very ahead of their time.
Yeah, there's a little. We'll talk about the troll in Sorcerer's Stone, but we'll get there. Taylor, I know you're going to be on for a couple Harry Potter films. Anton, Taylor is a huge Harry Potter fan.
Oh, what house are you?
Oh, Hufflepuff, probably.
All right.
It's an honest man.
Honey Badger don't care.
With Hufflepuff. No. The other nominee was iRobot, which those effects don't hold up at all.
Yeah, I know this should have been included there in the nominations.
Yeah. iRobot, that's another film we're going to cover. It's not going to be good.
I actually love that movie.
Really?
Yep.
There's
the antagonist.
There's literally only one scene I like in that film.
It's probably my least favorite scene.
Which one?
Is it where he gets the shoes in the mail and he's like, they're Converse, Vintage 2004. I just
No, that's a scene that I look back and say I can't believe I fell for it and actually bought Converse because of this film.
Wow.
No, I'll admit it. No, for me it was it's even in the trailer. It's when the what is it? The lieutenant fires the shotgun through the robot that goes through the glass.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
It was like the best scene. I was like, dang, and it's still delivered in the film. That was literally the only scene I liked.
He's like, I guess I'm gonna miss the good old days when people were killed by other people.
And then boom, shotgun to the robot.
Real quick, I have a nice Jake Gyllenhaal quote that he gave about this movie for an interview with Vanity Fair. He said, quote, "We were filming in Montreal in the dead of winter, and Quebec winters are not for a slouch. It was freezing, and yet we were shooting on a massive stage that was heated to 80 degrees, and then we were shooting in fake snow inside that stage, pretending like we were freezing cold. That just sort of encapsulates the absurdity of what movies are and how you desperately need your imagination in order to make these things work," end quote. And we're going to segue right into the second reason why it wasn't better, which is it's cheesy.
Gorgonzola,
mozzarella, Gouda.
Munster.
Rewatching this the other day, I was really shook. Like, I suppose I should have known this, but it really is the same story template as Independence Day.
Like beat for beat?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I think there's more characters in Independence Day, probably better characters in Independence Day.
Yeah, there's no equivalent Will Smith character.
Right, but we do have a Jeff Goldblum.
Yes, we do.
And thank goodness we don't really have a Bill Pullman.
Wait, who's Jeff Goldblum in Day After Tomorrow?
Dennis Quaid, the scientist that nobody wants to listen to.
More like Will Smith.
No. If anything, Jake Gyllenhaal is Will Smith.
Jeff Goldblum was like what part of like the comedic relief in that movie.
Yeah, but I mean, look, man, who else is going to invent a Windows computer virus to take down an entire alien civilization? Jeff Goldblum.
True.
No, I think for Will Smith here, we get 24-year-old high school student Jake Gyllenhaal. Smarter than his teachers. Actually, he does convincingly play a high school student. I'll give him that.
Yeah, because he's sort of like melancholy the whole movie.
Yeah.
Which maybe you could deem as like bad acting, or maybe he did it on purpose. Who knows?
I like his performance.
I didn't.
Oh man, disappointing.
I mean, I thought it was fine. It was just he had to play a teenager that was mad at his dad, and then they got back together.
Yep. It's implied that Dennis Quaid reunites with Hot Cell Award too, right?
That's true.
They were estranged.
Yeah.
I will give the film this. What I like about Gyllenhaal's performance is he's continuously using common sense, which makes it kind of believable. I thought his acting when he's trying to convince all the people to stay in the library and almost no one's listening to him. I thought his acting there was really good. He's frustrated. He doesn't have the self-confidence to really know how to convince them because he's still just a kid. You know, I think it would have been, not that there's anything realistic about this movie, but if he had somehow convinced everyone to stay, it would have felt like far less believable. But, you know, his ideas consist of like common sense things like, it's cold, so maybe we should stay inside. You know, like pretty solid, right? Like, oh, that makes sense.
Right, so you're saying the strategy and intelligence level lines up with high school decathlon.
Yeah.
I'd agree in some aspect, but there was some times where he's like, "My dad told me to do this," or "My dad told me to do that."
Well, look, his dad's a scientist.
Yeah, isn't but Jake Gyllenhaal is more than capable in that movie.
He knows how to use a payphone, which no teenager would know how to do now.
True.
I guess you wouldn't have the opportunity because they don't exist. This has got to be the last year of payphones, right? 2004? They were pretty rare at that point.
I'm trying to think. I mean, it was definitely still the area where you could mistake part of it for the 90s because, right, payphones, there was still VHS. Even the fashion of the time, it wasn't exactly like strikingly like late 2000s.
Yeah, that's a good point. The subplot that bothered me the most was anything involving Emmy Rossum's character. The whole thing where she cuts her leg. First of all, we get that dumbass cop. The people are trapped in a taxi and they're screaming at the cop and he's like, I can't understand you. I don't speak French. It's like, dude, they clearly want to get out of the taxi. You should probably help them. And she walks over and she's like, I speak French. And he's like, okay, tell them I'm going to break the window. It's just.
And then they leave their passport and bag in the taxi and they need it while like a huge tidal wave is like going towards them.
Right. And she goes back to get it because they can't do anything for themselves. And the cop can't do it because he's busy doing something else. And then she cuts her leg and they have to get antibiotics and evade wolves on an abandoned ship. That whole thing should have just been cut out of the film.
If it felt like she didn't have a ton of experience, it's fair to say she was only 17 at the time of the film.
Fair. She still ended up in that Dragon Ball movie.
Yeah, she did. So she had to go to movie jail.
I can't forgive her for that. We talked about the cold chasing them. It's genuinely hilarious. It's like something from a video game, not in a good way.
Yeah, not a fun video game.
The gasoline freezing on the helicopter pilots was also like probably shouldn't have been funny, but it kind of was.
No point to that scene at all.
I think the real tragedy there, did you catch this? So they were going to rescue the British royal family who were in Balmoral.
That's right.
Scotland.
That's right.
That's why. That's why they were.
Yeah.
The helicopters were going there.
Yes.
Oh wow, I missed that completely.
Yeah, they were on their way to rescue the royal family.
Oh jeez.
Yeah. Now I was thinking about this because, as you know, I'm a big fan of The Crown. I'm like, did the royal family die? And then I was like, wait a minute. They're in a castle. They've probably got enough food and stuff to last a long time. I think they were probably good.
And they probably have more than enough fireplaces. Fireplaces seem very important in this film.
Right. And if there's one thing you would expect from a castle in Scotland, it would be fireplaces.
Yeah.
And scotch.
So I think they're good.
Yeah, I think they made it. I feel better about that. This film was not afraid to kill characters. I give it credit for that. A proper disaster movie, Anton, as we know, is not afraid to kill off characters.
It's true. For big sacrifices that move the plot forward, am I right?
That's right. I don't know the character's name. I probably should. But J.O. Sanders, when he sacrifices himself, tragic.
It was
Frank.
That's it, Frank.
Yeah, Frank Oshag Hennessy. Yeah.
Frank Jack Daniels. And then we get the foolish characters, which is, always a part of disaster movies. Those morons who pay the bus driver $200 to just sit on a bus.
Yeah, instead of going to a building.
Yeah.
And then obviously the people in the library that left.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you brought that up because it's time to talk about that. Okay. So the one police officer, he's just like, the snow is getting deeper by the minute. We should go outside and walk where? Where were they going to go?
Oh, technically there's an explanation.
What was the plan there?
Some woman in the library was on the phone with someone she knew, and she's like, my brother's in Illinois. They're going to go south.
Right. No, I heard that. So, but what was the plan?
They're going to walk south.
They're going to walk where?
South.
Okay, but I was thinking about this, right? Taylor, you have intimate knowledge of New York City like I do. So the tunnels were obviously flooded. So they would have had to walk uptown to the George Washington Bridge, over the George Washington Bridge, and then into Fort Lee, and then go where?
South.
Right, in a snowstorm.
Yeah, but
that wouldn't even work in a normal storm.
But they didn't even go that way. They went down to Brooklyn.
Which doesn't make sense.
Which is a dead end.
Yeah.
Like Long Island is literally a dead end.
but they could take the Verrazano to Staten Island, but
That would be even, I guess that's more south, equally stupid.
equally stupid. Yes.
I always wonder about these situations, and I always I do this mental exercise, and I wonder, like, would I fall victim to herd mentality? Like, would I act that stupidly in that situation? Would I just go? I don't think I would. I think I want to give myself some credit here. Knowing what I know about snow, like, you can't survive long in it.
Without like sufficient clothing and gear.
Even then, like when Jack and what's his name, Dash Mihawk and Frank, and I mean Frank dies, but even then they have to, if they didn't have that tent with them, they would have died.
I mean, a lot of common sense just goes out the window in this movie. Like, even Dennis Quaid, like, I have a quote from him. He says something about, like, there's no chance, no one's going to survive going out in the storm. Everyone has to stay inside. And then, like, right after that, he goes, I have to go to New York to save my son.
Well, I mean, I would do the same thing if I were him.
I think it's fair that films like this, or even horror films, there are tropes that have to be accepted that are just part of the genre, which sometimes it's throwing away a bit of that believability or some of that logic. Like, right, in horror films, it's why is it that the group decides to split up or don't go into that room alone? Tropes like that. And then in disaster films, it's, well, there's maybe sense of direction goes out the window. We see a lot. There's definitely has to be a suspense of logic when it comes to these kinds of films.
It's exact, and it's also what Pat said earlier in the podcast. He said that it's just like embraces stupidity.
There we go.
And this is the one part where I couldn't.
No way.
I couldn't. When the police officer's like, the snow's getting thicker by the minute, we should just walk. And it's like, okay, is anyone wearing boots? No, then you can't walk anywhere. I don't know. I don't know why this bothers me so much.
No, it's okay. This movie bothered me so much.
Anton, I had some ideas for this movie.
All right.
This is widely seen as a very Bush administration movie.
It's very on the nose.
Yeah, because we had, look-alike Dick Cheney as vice president. That was deliberate on Roland Emmerich's part because it was intended to be a criticism of the Bush administration's opposition to the Kyoto Protocol for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But this is my idea for this film, Anton.
Mm-hmm.
If I could George Lucas special edition this film with some CGI, spice it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I would replace the president in this film with George Bush like they used Clinton in Contact.
Oh, that'd be kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would probably make it worse, but it'd be funny.
It'd probably be truer to what Roland Emmerich probably wanted to do.
Yeah, Taylor, did you ever see Contact?
No, I did not.
Okay, so one of the really stupid things about the movie is that it was released in 1997, and they put Clinton in the movie digitally.
Oh, like they tried to emulate him exactly as he looks in real life?
It's weird what they do. They don't really use him as a character that interacts with the other characters, but they show him on TV talking, and then they have other characters I just met with the president and he wants us to do this. It's really dumb.
Like Forrest Gump kind of.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
But dumber.
Interesting.
So an IQ of less than 75.
Yeah, and Matthew McConaughey's in it.
Yes, he plays a religious advisor to the president, which is also I would say equally funny. He's like, Ellie, I can't let you get on that spaceship.
We don't want no contact.
Also, I don't know if we've mentioned, but the president in this movie looks like Al Gore.
A little bit, yeah.
And he dies.
He's just cardigan Al Gore. Yeah, he doesn't make it. That's the thing. They forgot to fly the president out. They take him in a motorcade. Anton, my other theory for this.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Roland Emmerich, when he was trying to figure out who to cast in this movie, and he's like, I've already worked with one Quaid brother. I need to complete the circle. Get me Dennis Quaid.
Oh, I mean, if it's fair to say Roland Emmerich does work with a lot of people, a lot of the same people across films, or they make appearances, but I'm sure there is a bit of a fondness for the Quaid family.
And just for the record, Dennis Quaid is the superior of the Quaids.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah,
I mean, Randy Quaid sets a pretty low bar. He's, I would say, one of the 10 worst actors of all time. He's one of the reasons why I don't love Independence Day. His character almost ruins the movie for me.
What? Oh my gosh.
Awful.
I disagree.
He is not an Academy Award caliber actor.
I'm gonna have to blow your mind, Anton. He is an Academy Award nominee.
It can happen. I'm just saying it can happen.
It can happen by accident. Yeah, Taylor. If I was gonna ask you which of the two Quaid brothers was nominated for an Academy Award, would you guess Randy?
No.
No, but he was.
Wait, Dennis Quaid's never been nominated?
No.
Oh wow, not even The Rookie?
No. I don't think so. No, he didn't. No.
He was getting real close for Yours, Mine, and Ours, but
I think
didn't
he should have
happen.
been nominated for Jaws 3, but that's just me.
Well, you know what Roland has to do now. Cast Jack in his next movie to complete the trifecta.
In the day after tomorrow returns next week.
The day after tomorrow, starring Triple Quaid. I'm waiting for the Roland Emmerich comeback, like Brendan Fraser, where he just he makes the next Citizen Kane and wins his Oscar. Just kidding, it's never going to happen.
No, only sequels now.
Back to the last ridiculous thing to this movie. This is my favorite thing about this movie. So I looked this up, and according to Google Maps, walking from Philadelphia to Manhattan is 97 miles, and it would take 30 hours. So realistically, that's 3 days of walking because you have to sleep, and that would be in favorable weather conditions. And this is my favorite thing about the film. They walk from Philadelphia to Manhattan with snowshoes on. Tremendous.
And what was that? And what was the course of time in the film?
It doesn't seem like it takes that long. How long would you think that would take? If it's 30 hours in normal weather conditions, I'm saying a week?
Weeks would probably be more accurate, but they didn't look like they were carrying any supplies that would have.
Well, hang on, Anton. That's not fair because we know that they resupplied at the Wendy's.
You're right. There we go.
Wait, they were carrying supplies. Oh wait, no. Well, they were carrying supplies and then they lost the supplies.
Yeah. Because what's his name? Frank selfishly sacrificed.
Damn it!
Took all the supplies with him.
Damn it!
Also, I don't know why Frank was heavier than two grown men.
Well, I think that they could have gotten him out if they weren't on the glass. I think that was the problem. But Frank, he didn't even give them a chance. He's just nope, I'm gonna have to kill myself.
Well, also Dennis Quaid stuck a pickaxe in the snow, which is on the glass, and he was able to stop himself.
So you're saying Frank sacrificed himself
for nothing,
for no reason?
Yeah. Yep. Poor Frank. He had it.
You want to hear about a fun deleted scene? Speaking of Wendy's,
absolutely.
There's an alternate version in the scene where Jack and Jason are in the Wendy's cooking burgers and then talking about mankind and just having philosophical discussions about ice ages.
Is this true?
Yes, this is true.
I'm disappointed that's not in the film.
Were they cooking Wendy's burgers or their own meat?
Obviously Wendy's burgers.
It was Wendy's burgers because
they lost all their gear.
No, they went out and killed a deer and decided to cook it themselves.
And they're like, "Well, I thought this was only fresh, never frozen." But
no, did they really say that?
No, but I would have added that in.
Oh my gosh.
That's why I'm not a writer.
See, Roland Emmerich, his movies are cheesy enough that I believe that would be something they would put in the script. Oh my god.
So going back to the
I better call my lawyer. Oh, wrong movie.
Going back to the time frame of all this, I think it happened in the span of one day.
No way.
Really? No, no
way.
I thought it was
2 days. So wait, oh man, I'm trying to think.
I'm gonna say it took them a week to walk to New York because they were hauling ass.
Week? It just didn't seem like that.
I like it when they crash the pickup truck into the snowdrift and they're like we gotta walk and maybe back up and try another.
Yeah, instantly.
They don't even try any other path. They're just well, we gotta walk now.
Yep.
I'm amazed they made it from DC to Philly without any visibility. They just had Dash Mihawk's little it looked like a TomTom thing he was carrying. He's just oh, we're near Philadelphia. It's thanks. It's really exact.
Oh, 2004.
Oh, I love this movie. I really do. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm defending this movie.
I think it's fair to say that it is entertaining enough that it's at that level of bad where you can see what they were trying to do, but there's enough gilding on it that it seems okay, right?
It's passable.
The effects, you got Dennis Quaid, but then there's enough. Yeah, but then there's enough of the negatives.
No, I have another reason why I find this movie watchable. I think much like he did with Independence Day, Emmerich was wise enough to cast a bunch of solid supporting character actors in the smaller roles. Ian Holm, great actor. You feel genuinely bad when the power shuts down and him and his Manchester United supporting coworkers are going to die.
Right. Sad. Very sad.
J.O. Sanders. We like J.O. Sanders, right? I love him in JFK. He's playing the same character, except he was Kevin Costner's deputy in that film.
The kid with the cancer.
I don't know the name of that actor, but yeah, he did a good job.
He was,
he looked sick.
Brought some, raised the stakes with his performance.
I think it was very nice of the authorities to send a single ambulance for him. It's great use of resources.
Right, in the middle of a storm.
Right.
after he wasn't evacuated with everyone else.
Right. I like how Stella Ward was just like, he can't be moved in anything but an ambulance. And it's like, maybe this is the time to try that.
She was barely in this film.
I don't know why she's in this film.
Yep.
There's no point.
Added nothing.
I didn't get her character. Like, it was to add like manufactured conflict. Like, she's sort of the love interest, but they're also separated. But we have to have human stakes.
And she was barely enough in the film that if you do take out her parts, it really just doesn't do anything.
Right. Like, at least Vivica A. Fox was a stripper in Independence Day.
Right. And this is where like the whole like plot confusion comes in too, because there are so many weird little useless subplots in this movie.
There's also Nestor Serrano, though, who's a like really good character actor. I'm a big fan of his. He plays Jack Hall's boss.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He's in I remember from 24.
Oh, he has an amazing role in 24. He's terrifying. He plays Navia Raz, I think that's his name.
That was and that was that same time period too, 24. Yeah.
Was that season 3 or 4?
I think it was 4.
Yeah, it's 4.
Yeah.
And then I just remember that was that same time period. Look at us reminiscing about the 2000s.
24. Once Upon a Time, that was a great show.
Yes, it was.
It went a little overboard, but the early seasons of that show were great. I will always appreciate this film because it gave us one of the all-time greatest South Park episodes. 2 days before the day after tomorrow.
Oh man, I have to watch that.
You remember that one?
I don't.
It's pretty hilarious.
The entire disaster starts because don't the beavers build a dam?
Mm-hmm. And it's Randy plays the Dennis Quaid. Randy is basically the Dennis Quaid character because he's a geologist.
Yes.
And he has no idea what's going on, but he just kind of makes up similarly, this is climate change.
Well, I didn't know this until doing the research, but Team America World Police was originally going to be a puppet parody of this film, and it would have been titled The Day After Tomorrow, but Trey Parker and Matt Stone didn't make it because Viacom thought they'd get sued.
Those are...
Wait, so they made Team America, and they...
Yes.
Like, and that was better. Like, that was like... Viacom approved that. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, because that wasn't directly riffing anything, except for like Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
And then just riffing on all of Hollywood basically at that point.
Yeah, pretty much riffed on like way more than just one movie.
Yeah. Here's the best tweet that I could find about this film. Quote, "This is about as accurate as Inglourious Bastards was to World War II, and that's okay." End quote.
Who said that?
Just a tweet that I found.
Yeah, but Inglourious Bastards knew it was inaccurate. This is like trying to be serious.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Do you got like Pat and Taylor? Do you feel like Roland Emmerich was self-aware in this film being serious, or knowing that it is very cheesy?
I think, like a lot of folks in Hollywood, he really thought he was making something profound.
Oh my gosh, really?
I think so. Unfortunately, this probably set the global warming movement back because just think how many jokes have been made about this movie.
There's a beauty to that, sincerity, and like I think that's the thing that I also see on the screen. There's a sincerity to what's been put together. Clearly, Roland Emmerich's talked a lot about the environment. He is very big, like, social activist. So have that big budget and put it together with this film. Like, you can see there was a lot of care put into it, but then it just ends up coming off as a bit cheesy.
Just a bit.
My personal favorite part is when Dennis Quaid flies his plane into the global warming spaceship and blows it up.
Same.
Yeah.
That was a deleted scene, actually, I think.
Yep. Yeah. They didn't have that in the final cut, but
he launched out of the Wendy's.
Yeah, and this is actually breaking news. There is a sequel in the makes, and global warming is going to return to Earth with reinforcements to seek revenge.
There's your antagonist.
Yep, Taylor's going to be going to see that. I don't have anything else to add. I think we've had a lot of fun talking about this film. It is time to wrap this up and give our ratings. Taylor, as the guest, would you like to go first?
Yep. Should I give my rating first and then explanation, or the other way around?
Whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want, man.
All right, I'm going to save the rating until after the explanation, but I think I was most excited when I was a kid for like the weather, the disaster, you know, just like everything morphing in the world and it being like a dystopian type of like event. But I had mentioned this earlier, just like the pacing of the movie, the pacing of the weather, like the weather, it wasn't like a linear like progression. It's like, because we saw snow in India, then we went back to like DC was fine, and then tornadoes in Los Angeles, and then that was so intense, and then we go back to like some boring like rain in New York, and it just like dragged on. And like I remember being so disappointed in that when I first saw this. And that was like pretty much supposed to be like the main event of the whole movie. And it was just boring and made the whole movie like useless. So that's my biggest rift or rift. What's the which one is it?
I don't know if it's either.
That's my biggest gripe. Let's just say
There
that.
you go.
There
you
that
go.
works. That works.
That's my biggest gripe with this movie.
That's
and
your glacier-sized gripe.
Yep, but there are so many other things awful with it, and I'm gonna give. Oh, and I had to do some rewatches of this, and I couldn't even finish the movie. Like, I mean, I finished it, and then I watched it again, and I was just like, nope. And I had to take many breaks throughout the movie. But I digress. My grade is gonna be a solid D.
Okay, all right. So bad, but not awful.
Wait, okay, D minus then.
Oh, okay. So you put this on the same level as like Prometheus.
Well, I don't remember what I gave Prometheus, but I'd say it's
D.
worse than.
Well,
okay.
you gave that a D minus, and please don't give us an F. You'll hurt our feelings.
Okay, fine. D minus.
You can give it an F if you want.
No, D minus. D minus.
Okay. I'll go next, Anton. This movie is idiotic. It's absurd. It's pretty bad, but I kind of like it. I don't know if Roland Emmerich intended this to be as stupid as it was, and I don't think he did, but I enjoy the stupidity of it. I have a lot of nostalgia for this, but just judging it as a film, I think a lot of the set pieces hold up. Visually, it's got some really cool stuff that it's doing. We didn't even mention the score, which I thought was pretty good. It was good for this kind of film. I liked the performances. I like Dennis Quaid in this film. I like Jake Gyllenhaal. I like most of the supporting characters. I like how it's paced. This is what I call a rainy day movie, and it's not just because of the weather. I just find this oddly, stupidly entertaining, and it's the perfect Roland Emmerich movie. When I went to see this, I had pretty low expectations because I knew, well, it's based on the weather. How could it possibly be good? And it wasn't good, but it was kind of just what I expected it to be. It's so profoundly mediocre, I can't go above C.
Okay. This film to me is pretty average. And I try to think about it in terms of the context of when it was released. It was a late spring, almost summer release, 2004. And I think about the scale of the film, the timing of it. This film is meant to really just blow the minds of just, I'd say, your average film goer. And I feel like there really wasn't, especially when we dive into the very thin plot and where really the focus was, which was the visuals. This was really just meant to be, I really do feel like this was just meant to be a film to make money, to get people in seats because of just how over the top of a disaster film this is. And just being able to really capture the scale of it and being able to really depict all of the carnage. I think it did a good job with that. While portions of it are entertaining in terms of some of the performances of the actors and the effects, which do hold up pretty well, I find that there's just not enough of it where I'm going to go back and say, yeah, this was a great film. To me, it's still just a very average film. And I think that what it does have going for it is really these strong highlights that it came out during a time where the over-the-top effects were really put together for strong trailers. I feel like this was a time period where trailers are also really great, and we don't really have that nowadays. So all this to say, I think this film is at a C- for me.
All right. Well, Taylor, I'm glad you liked it.
Glad I got to talk about it with you guys.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed talking about it. That's all I could say. It's been a pleasure, Taylor. Thanks again for joining Why Wasn't It Better?
Thank you, guys.
Taylor, we'll have you back for some Harry Potter.
Can't wait.
And I'm hoping that you're going to be wearing that Hufflepuff gear next time we see you, okay?
Yep. Got it at the dry cleaners right now.
Your cloak?
Everything.
Your
Do you
wand?
have a Hufflepuff tie? You can buy them.
I'm going all out. Let's just say that.
So you're going full robe?
And I'll do you one better. I'll wear it for a whole week.
Wow. I mean, we
Leading
didn't
up to the podcast.
even ask for that, but
I'll even go into the office with it.
Do you have your wand on you?
I'm holding it right now.
Do you have a concealed carry permit for that wand?
As a matter of fact, I do.
All righty. Well, that is it for the day after tomorrow. Taylor, once again, thanks for joining.
Thank you, guys.
Listeners can tune in next week when we talk about another disaster film, the 50th anniversary of The Towering Inferno. See you then.